Hello friends, welcome to my channel. This is Charan. In this video I will show you in MVC how to insert the selected drop down list value into database using web API. And here we got the final output. Notice the label sports name and the drop down list control, which contains some sports: cricket, rugby, running and tennis. Now let's select the sports. I'm selecting the tennis. Now before insert this tennis sports name into the database table, let's check our database table also. Let's execute the sports table. Right now this sports table contains 0 rows. Let's insert the record into the sports table. Create. See, here we got a message: tennis is saved successfully. Let's add the another sport. This time I'm selecting cricket. Create. We got a message: cricket is saved successfully. So we have inserted two sports now. One is the tennis and cricket. Let's check in the database table. Now again I'm executing the table sports, and here we got the results of the sports, which contains the tennis and cricket is added successfully into this sports table. That's it. If you are a first time visitor to my channel, please subscribe to get the latest updates. Before writing the coding part in ASP.NET MVC using Web API, first we'll create a new table in SQL Server Management Studio. Let's expand the root folder as well as the databases. In the databases, the new DB is a user database. Let's create a new table. Let me expand this new DB database as well as the tables folder. Let's create a new table. Right click the new DB database, new query. Let's create a table. Create table. I'm adding the table name is a sports. Sports ID is a column name, integer type, not null. I'm adding primary key as well as I'm adding the identity column for this table. The second column is a sports name and varchar. The size of the n varchar is a 50. That's it. Let's create the table, execute. And here we got a message: command completed successfully. Let's refresh the tables folder of the new DB database. Right click the tables, refresh. And here we got the dbo.sports table. Let's browse the table. Right click the mouse, select top 1000 rows. And here we got the results of the sports table. Right now this table contains 0 rows. Let's insert the new values into this table from drop down list using Web API. For this video tutorial, I'm creating a new MVC Web API application. Go to File, New, Project. From the web templates, I'm selecting ASP.NET Web Application, and the .NET Framework I'm using 4.6.1. The application name is Web API insert drop down list. Here's a project name. Click OK. And from the ASP.NET templates, I'm selecting Web API. Click OK. And the project is created successfully. Let's close this default window. Open Solution Explorer. Now in this project, first I'm adding the ADO.NET Entity Data Model. Right click the project name, add ADO.NET Entity Data Model, and the model name is, I'm adding sports model. Click OK. And from the model contents, I'm selecting the first option, EF Designer from database. Click Next. Let's create a new connection. I'm adding my SQL Server name. It's Express. After adding SQL Server name, now I'm selecting the database name. The table we have created in the new DB database, so I'm selecting the new DB database. Click test connection. Is succeeded. OK. And here we got the connection string, and the connection string name is a new DB entities, and I'm saving this connection string in the web.config file. Click next. Now let's select the table. I'm expanding the tables folder as well as DBO. The table name is a sports. I have selected that one. Click finish. And here the sports entity model is added to our project. Now let's close this output message. Now after adding the entity model to our project, now open Solution Explorer. Let's minimize this references folder. Now in this models folder, I'm creating a class to create the properties. Right click the models folder, add class. Let's give a class name, sports class. The class name is, click add. And here we got our sports class. Now in the sports class, I'm defining only the public properties, public int. We have two columns in our sports table, sports ID and sports name. Let's add those columns. Sports ID, get set, public string. Second one is the sports name, get set. After adding the properties into this class, now open Solution Explorer. Now I'm adding the WebAPI controller to our project in this controllers folder. Right click the controllers folder, add controller. I'm selecting WebAPI 2 controller empty. Click add. The controller name is sport controller. Add. And here we got our API controller sport. Now first let's add our models folder using WebAPI is a project name dot models folder. After that, now in this controller I'm adding public HTTP action result. Get sport, insert sports is a method name, insert sports. Now in this method I'm adding our class name, which is a sports class. SC is an object. After that, let's add our connection string name, which is a new DB entities. ND is equals to new DB entities. And the next step, ND dot the sports is a table entity dot add method. The add method takes the sport entity, so new will add the sport, the table name. Now let's add the property sports ID is equals to SC this object dot sports ID comma sports name is equals to SC dot sports name semicolon. Now the next step is ND dot save changes method return OK method. That's it. We have written the code in this API controller to insert the values in the sport table. Now let's add the MVC controller. Open Solution Explorer. In the same controllers folder, I'm adding MVC controller right click the controllers folder, add, select the controller, and this time I'm selecting MVC file controller empty, add, and the controller name is insert sport is a controller name, add, and here we got our insert sport controller. Let's add the namespace using project name is WebAPI insert DDL dot, let's add the models folder, semicolon. I want to post the data, so let's add the public action result index for HTTP post method. This method is get and this method is post. Now in this action result index, I am adding the class name, which is a sports class. Sports class SC is an object. I am using HTTP client to consume the web API method. HTTP, we need to add the namespace using system.net.http. The HTTP client belongs to this namespace. So now we'll get the HTTP client class. Let's create an object is equals to new HTTP client. Let's see dot base address is equals to new URI. Now we require the URI of the API controller. So what I'll do is, let's delete this one. Sport controller, let's browse Google Chrome, we'll get the web API address, and here we got the default output of this domain localhost 58351. Now we require the web API URI. So after the domain, I'm adding /API/. Our API controller name is sport controller. So let's add sport, enter, and here we got the output of this URI. The requested resource does not support HTTP method get because we are implementing the HTTP post. We are posting the data. Just we require this URI to consume the web API method. So again switch back to the coding part, stop debugging. Now let's switch over to the controller, MVC controller. Now here I'm adding an base address is equals to new URI. This URI takes the parameter string. Between double quotes I'm adding the URI string, which is a web API. Let's add this one. Semicolon. Next, let's insert the values. For that I'm declaring a variable insert sport is equals to hc dot post as JSON async, and post as JSON async takes a T type. Here is the class name, which is a sports class, which takes two parameters. The first one is a string request URI. The string is double quotes, so the request URI is a sport, comma, and the second parameter is the sports class value. Let's add this object SC, semicolon, insert sport dot wait method. Now the final step, we have to save the record. Variable save sport is equals to insert sport dot result property. If save sport dot is status code is success status code, Now in this if condition, if the record is inserted successfully, I want to display the message on the browser. For that I am using the viewBag.message is equals to sc dot the sport name and plus is saved successfully, semicolon. That's it, we have consumed the web API controller in this controller. Now we require the index view page. Now before adding the view page to this project, let's build the application first. Build solution, and the project is built successfully. Let's close this output message box. Now let's create a view page of this action result index. Select the index method, right click the mouse, add view. The view name is index only. The template, we are inserting the data, so I'm selecting the create template. The model class, I'm selecting the model class is a sport web API insert DDL, and the data context class I'm adding new DB entities. Click add, and here we got the index view page also. And notice when we have chosen the template create, the controls are added, the necessary controls are added. We require the only sports name is added and the button control to submit the data. Now the editor for is a text box control, which I don't require because I want to insert the records from drop down list control. So let's comment that one. Instead of editor for, I'm adding the simple select option, which is a drop down list. Now in the select, I'm adding the name property. Now to insert the values, we require the model sports name. So for that I'm adding the HTML helper classes at HTML dot name for, adding model dot sports name. Now in this option I'm adding the value is empty, selector disabled. I'm adding the label select sport Now let's add the items. Sport option, the sports name I'm adding cricket. The second option I'm adding rugby, running, and the fourth option I'm adding tennis. Just for the demo purpose, I have added only 4 sports name. That's it, we have done the complete coding part. We have added the ADO.NET entity model. We got the model class, sports class, API controller, MVC controller, and the index view page. Now the final step, before run this application, we must change the controller name. For that, open Solution Explorer. In the project there is a app underscore start folder, expand that one, and notice there is a route config.cs file, open that one. The controller here is a home, which is a default one. Let's delete that one and add our controller name is insert sport controller. And the action view page, which is an index, this one only. And friends, here we forgot to add the view back message. Let's add that one. Break at viewback.message. That's it, we have done the complete coding part. Now it's time to check the results. Google Chrome. And here we got the final output. Notice the label sports name and the drop down list control, which contains some sports: cricket, rugby, running and tennis. Now let's select the sports. I'm selecting the tennis. Now before insert this tennis sports name into the database table, let's check our database table also. Let's execute the sports table. Right now this sports table contains 0 rows. Let's insert the record into the sports table. Create. See, here we got a message: tennis is saved successfully. Let's add the another sport. This time I'm selecting cricket. Create. We got a message: cricket is saved successfully. So we have inserted two sports now, one is the tennis and cricket. Let's check in the database table. Now again I'm executing the table sports, and here we got the results of the sports, which contains the tennis and cricket is added successfully into this sports table. That's it. We have implemented Web API to insert records from drop down list control.